So conservatives have been acting very weird about birth rates recently. If you guys remember, on the campaign, JD Vance did say some stuff about trying to give child tax credits to people just to help more American mums have children. Donald Trump has recently talked about maybe even giving $5,000 to people for having children. And to many of us, it seems very inconsistent, but there is a darker logic to it, because on the surface you're like, are people seriously going to be bribed by $5,000 to have kids in a country that is increasingly going to shit because of the guy bribing you? He's cutting all of these things with Elon Musk to make it harder to raise a child in America, not to mention how fucking expensive it is, and that includes even paying a lot of money to give birth in terms of hospital bills in the first place. That $5,000 seems like a bit of a sick joke. But the logic is they don't actually care about your child having a good life. They care primarily about your child being a wage slave one day. And we're even seeing them try and attack legislation outlawing child labor. So what they want is from about the age of 14 to 70 is a wage slave. And what happens after that, or what happens during that, they don't really give a shit. They want to completely extract as much labor out of you as possible in your lifetime, and then whatever happens to you afterwards, who gives a shit? That's why they're attacking Social Security as well. They don't want to pay for that. So you will just be a worker to them. And that's why so many capitalists are so terrified about things like birth rates. Obviously, we have two more components. We have absolute psychos like Elon Musk who want, basically as many children as possible just from them for pure narcissistic reasons and also racist reasons. And then we have a combination of factors where, yes, a lot of racists want a lot of white people to have more children because they're afraid of their race going extinct in the United States. The underlying point of all of this is conservatives don't give a shit about children. Not that you ever needed to hear that from someone like me, but do not be fooled at all that them wanting people to have more kids is because they care about humanity in any way. And also, all the centrist pundits pretending like it's the right wing who care about children because they want people to have children are just insane. Because left-wing people care about children because we care about humanity. We want to improve everyone's life so you can actually choose to have a child. And also on that point, I want to read you a statistic quickly, because this is the underlying point for so many people, because plenty of people want to have children. So many people feel like they can't have kids, even though they want to because they can't afford it. So a Guardian article said, there is evidence that Americans would like to have more children. A 2023 Gallup poll found that 47% of Americans think an ideal family has 1 or 2 children, while only 2% said families should have 0. At the same time, a Pew poll that same year found that 47% of American adults under 50 say they are unlikely to ever have children. Of those, nearly 60% say they just don't want kids. Nearly 40% said they couldn't afford to have kids, or that the state of the world had convinced them not to. So the left-wing answer to that would be, make it more affordable to have children and improve the state of the world so people don't feel so hopeless about raising a child in that. The conservative answer is, here's $5,000 and I'm going to make the world hell, and I'm going to make just general society worse. So I would say it's the left that have pro-family and pro-child policies. But I want to talk about all of this today in relation to psychos like Elon Musk as well, and their views on having children, and just fundamentally how the conservative movement want you to have more kids because they want more wage slaves to perpetuate a capitalist system, and actually perpetuate a system where capitalism might be ending for techno-feudalism. And of course, if you want techno-feudalism to thrive in places like Mars, to people like Elon Musk, you need more people, you need more slaves. Sounds like the plot of Blade Runner, because it pretty much is. So all of that coming up for you today. I just want to shout out quickly, my girlfriend Holly is running a half marathon, and she is raising money for medical aid for Palestinians, and she would appreciate anyone giving anything they can. There's a goal of £500 at the moment. I've shouted this out already. So if you want to help, please consider donating anything. And thanks so much to everyone for my fundraiser at the end of last year for medical aid for Palestinians. We raised about £13,000, which is amazing. So let's try again and help medical aid for Palestinians and give Holly our support. So I feel like we need to talk about the racism thing because it affects the rest of the video. So Matt Walsh is probably one of the most prominent fascists in the mainstream conservative movement. So he tweeted the other day a series of things that was interesting. So he writes, The birth rate in 1850 was almost 300 births per 1,000 women of childbearing age. In 1950, it was 106. Today, it's 55. Half of what it was 75 years ago. 20% of what it was 175 years ago. We need to start taking this problem seriously before we march into our own extinction. Keep that in mind about who we is and who is going extinct, because it's not the human race. Yes, we are seeing declining birth rates in places like Japan or America or Western Europe. It's not an extinction problem for the rest of the world. The population just keeps increasing. So he's not talking about humanity there. Policy should drastically favour families with children. Married couples with kids under 18 should not have to pay any income tax, just for starters. Raise taxes on single mums and couples with no kids to make up the difference. So, yeah, before Conservatives tell you they are pro-child, here's one guy saying, raise taxes on single mums. What kind of insane logic even is that? But yeah, also saying, get rid of income tax for families. But then he follows it up by saying, Matt Walsh is worried about birth rates for white babies. He wants more white babied. What's wrong with wanting more white babies? Should I want there to be fewer? Is that what you want? Elaborate why you specifically want white babies, especially if fertility rates are in crisis. Do you really need me to elaborate on why I don't want my own race to go extinct? Is that actually confusing to you? So yeah, Matt Walsh is a fascist. We've had this debate like a million times. The way it's refreshing that there is no mask, like he is just an open white nationalist saying, I don't want my race to go extinct. I don't want to go over this too much, but race is a social construct. What does someone like myself, who's ethnically Irish, have in common with someone in Iran who's white as well, right? What is the commonality of our white race? We have the same skin color, we're both pale, but we're from completely different parts of the world, speak different languages, have different cultures, have different religions. What does us having the same skin color even mean? Race is a construct that was forced on us by European colonialists and enforced by white supremacy across Western nations to make us feel like we have differences based on the color of our skin and that certain people are better based on the colour of their skin, and it's always that black people were seen as the most inferior, white people were raised up as the most superior, but also we also know the hypocrisy in that. As an ethnically Irish person, we were not viewed as white in America or Great Britain for a long time, despite the fact you could probably not even tell the difference between us and an English person, right? So yeah, race is totally made up, and it's bullshit, and anyone making this argument is a white nationalist, by the way. But I want to keep that in mind as we look at what Trump has been saying recently. So just an article I was reading today by Howard Koplowitz. Trump wants menstrual classes for women, $5,000 baby bonuses to reverse declining birth rates. So Trump is considering several ways to reverse the birth rates. Raising America's birth rate, along with improving access to in vitro fertilization, is expected to be part of Trump's cultural agenda, according to the New York Times. Those ideas and others are emerging from a movement concerned with declining birth rates that has been gaining steam for years and now finally has allies in the US administration like JD Vance and Elon Musk. Policy experts and advocates of boosting the birth rate have been meeting with White House aides, sometimes handing over written proposals on ways to help or convince women to have more babies. In February, Trump signed an executive order. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the order directs policy recommendations to protect IVF access and aggressively reduce out-of-pocket and health plan costs for such treatments. So again, the $5,000 bribe, making IVF more affordable, but not free, is their plan to make people have more children. And of course, we have to think about the racially motivated angle of this, about white birth rates and stuff like that, and how so many people in Trump's cabinet think like Matt Walsh on this issue, that they don't want white Americans replaced. I mean, the whole Trump administration and Trump regime is white nationalist, and we've seen this rhetoric go on for since the first Trump regime, where they're talking about Democrats importing immigrants from what they perceive as non-white countries to vote for Democrats, right? So they think they have to save the white American race to ensure Republicans control the government for a long, long time. If they were very serious about this issue, even serious in terms of making white people have more children, why would they not actually pursue universal healthcare? So people could have children without paying money to actually give birth. People could raise children without worrying about healthcare costs. People could stop worrying about their own healthcare costs and have all that money put away to maybe afford a home or something like that to actually create a secure environment for a child in the first place. No, they don't want any of that because they're not fucking serious. And maybe people like Matt Walsh might be sincere, but these people, although in theory they want people to have more kids, they are not prepared to reform the system enough to make it a more viable option. So again, it rings really hollow, especially when Of course, Elon Musk is completely destroying basically the centralized state that helps so many people who are in poverty and have problems with healthcare. And then obviously you have RFK Jr. and all the measles shit. So I read this the other day. The measles surge in the Southwest is the largest single outbreak since 2000. So also it's full of anti-vaxxers basically telling people not to get their kids vaccinated. So you don't give a fucking shit about children. You just want wage slaves, and you're worried about what will happen if there's less wage slaves in America. The party of family values doesn't give a shit about the family, doesn't give a shit about your children. Again, they want wage slaves. And that's how you can see that ideology as not incoherent, because on the surface, you're like, well, why would you pay people this money to have these children if you make life unbearable for so many people? It's to con people into having children. And also, I've spoken about this before, trapping women as baby machines is something they want to do as part of this. We've seen them attack no-fault divorce, and we've seen their ideology recently in wanting trad wives and stuff. So all of this just goes together, but again, it's not going to work, I don't think, in reversing declining birth rates, because you'd have to fundamentally improve the system. When we see statistics, like I spoke about at the start. Moving on from that, let's talk about the creepy and weird now. Let's talk about Elon Musk. Now, I've made a few videos about his breeding obsession, and I spoke more about the science fiction angle. And there was an article by the Wall Street Journal. It's behind a paywall, so I'm going to use another one, which talks about this article. And it's just about why he's obsessed with having so many children and just how creepy this dude is. So obviously he recently had another child with Ashley St. Clair, and I just want to read parts of this article and then speak about it. So inside Musk's plan to make a legion of babies and to get to Mars to save civilization. Elon Musk has a plan to populate the world with more babies of high intelligence, and it's all part of his wider mission to one day occupy Mars to save civilization. This is according to an explosive report by the Wall Street Journal about the world's richest man and how MAGA influencer Ashley St. Clair found herself caught up in the harem drama. St. Clair, 26, went public with her claims that she had a child with Musk. Now she has claimed the billionaire offered her a one-time payment of $15 million plus $100,000 a month until her child turns 21 in exchange for a silence, which apparently they were going to do. The press got wind of this, so she had to go public. According to multiple sources, the number of Musk's children is much higher than publicly known. During their time together, Elon Musk frequently talked to Ashley St. Clair about having children. The first time they had sex, he joked that they should pick a name for their child. On a trip to St. Bart's, he said, "What are we waiting for?" During the pregnancy, she claimed Musk suggested they bring in other women to have even more of their children faster in a mission to save civilization. To reach Legion level before the apocalypse, Musk told St. Clair in a text message seen by the Journal, "We will need to use surrogates." Now, before we go any further, this guy's a fucking creep, and he reminds me of Jeffrey Epstein. I'm going to talk about that at the end. And he obviously has been reading way too much science fiction. Like, this stuff actually reminds me of Dune, which probably isn't surprising when him and Grimes said their child is going to be like Paul Atreides. I'm not fucking joking. I made a whole video about that. But yeah, this guy's clearly like a Nazi eugenicist, and let's go onto this a bit more. So Musk said last year in Saudi Arabia, "I think for most countries, they should view the birth rate as the single biggest problem they need to solve. If they don't make new humans, there's no humanity." Musk's baby-making project is relevant to his ambition for NASA, which he wants to move to go faster to Mars. The Wall Street Journal reports, Musk sees it as his responsibility to help seed the Earth with more human beings of high intelligence. What is important is that we establish a self-sustaining city on Mars. Musk said this is important for the long-term future of humanity, or consciousness as we know it. It also talks about how he basically would use Twitter to pay people like massively inflated rates as part of their partner program just to get into their DMs. Everyone knew this of Tiffany Fong, like everyone said it like months and months ago, but this article basically confirms it, and he actually asked her to have a child with him. But this is the creepiest part. Musk wanted St. Clair to spend time at his compound in Austin, so the billionaire envisioned a world where the mothers of all his children would live together in Austin, Texas. St. Clair revealed that Musk intended for her to spend time with our Kid Legion in Austin. The gated community is where Siobhan Zillis, the mother of 4 of his children, lives. The SpaceX CEO comes and goes. He really wants smart people to have kids, so he encouraged me to, Zillis told Musk's biographer. Grimes refused to move to the compound and has endured her own court battles with Musk over the custody of their children. Now, billionaires are just freaks, and I've come to the conclusion recently, you actually have to be a piece of shit to be a billionaire, not just because you're happy to trample all over other humans to get to this position of wealth and power. You actually just have to be sick in the head, and that's why you want all this power in the first place, and that's how you have that drive to accumulate all this power, because you're a sicko who has views that are so outside the norm of society, you need this power to make it go mainstream. Before I talk about all that Elon Musk stuff, I just want to remind people, Jeffrey Epstein wanted to do something similar. So Epstein reportedly hoped to develop super race of humans with his DNA. He hoped to do this by impregnating women at his ranch in New Mexico. Epstein told scientists and businessmen about his ambitions to use his New Mexico ranch as a base where women would be inseminated with his sperm and would give birth to his babies. His goal was to have 20 women at the time impregnated at his Zorro ranch in a tiny town outside Santa Fe. So how does that sound any different from what Elon Musk is doing? Apparently Elon Musk also uses things like IVF to have some of his children as well. So they're pretty much the same. Elon Musk is basically Jeffrey Epstein, and most billionaires are basically Jeffrey Epstein. And again, these people are just so insane. And in Elon Musk's case, in my opinion, he just loves sci-fi so much. Apparently that's how him and Grimes even got together, because they both shared this love of this sci-fi. And everything I read about him just seems to me, he's been watching too much Blade Runner. He's been reading too much Dune, where in Dune, like in Assassin's Creed, you have genetic memory. So you can actually access the personalities of the past. That's what the Bene Gesserit do. And that's what Paul can do as like a male Bene Gesserit. And there's some sort of genetic lineage you can access by carrying these people's genes forward. It's obviously not based on anything real, but you can imagine some nerds into sci-fi want that to be real. And also like a lot of white supremacists, Elon Musk, Jeffrey Epstein, they believe in eugenics. So your children will inherently be just like you. They will carry your legacy. They will be oh so smart. Obviously, this is all bullshit. But if it was true, Elon Musk wouldn't be the one having these children because he isn't smart. He's a fucking idiot. So I don't know how that would save humanity. But yeah, again, like I'm saying, Epstein or Musk, their ideas around this stuff are just so sick and twisted, and they can only get it into the mainstream by using their fame and power to basically con women into going along with this and paying them enough money to do this. And obviously it's also like a fetish thing that we're being subjected to hearing about. So people like Elon Musk, they also only care about the birth rates for certain things, right? Does Elon Musk care about the goodness of humanity? Does he care about everyone living a very, fulfilling life? Care about our needs and material conditions being met? No, he's proved that. If he was using his position in the Trump regime to get people universal healthcare, to get people like child tax credits, to get people loads of things that would improve our lives, maybe I could take him more seriously that he actually cares about humanity. He doesn't. Just like with Blade Runner, he has delusions of grandeur like the billionaires in those films, where they want to create a slave race of humans, the replicants in Blade Runner, to basically colonize the stars for the benefit of people like himself. Elon Musk just thinks about it on a grander scale, but fundamentally, Elon Musk, Trump, JD Vance, all these people, they just want a continuing line of wage slaves. And that's it. Elon Musk probably wants literal slaves in his Mars colony. And like I talked about in the privatization of space video, what's going to happen if we allow people like Elon Musk to go to Mars and colonize it and stuff? It's going to be the East India Company 2.0. It's going to be Columbus 2.0. It's going to be someone who is not subject to the laws of the places they've come from, where they can just create a society based on their own whims. And what we saw with the New World, of course, was literally the creation of white supremacist racism and that hierarchy that still infects our world today. That was created in the 14 and 1500s by Spanish and Portuguese colonialists to justify the new hierarchies in these places, right? And of course, what did they do? They treated the natives terribly, but they imported, obviously, black West African slaves to do most of the work for them and work them to death in these terrible, terrible conditions on these plantations or in these mines in the New World. And that is a good blueprint of what is going to happen with the colonization of space if we let private companies and these untouchable billionaires lead it. It's just going to create these new hierarchies, these new slave classes, these new serf classes in a place which is pretty much untouchable by international law or even American law. So it's pretty bleak, but yeah, fundamentally, all these conservatives want is more wage slaves. And some of them are racist and they want the continuation of the white race. Some of them are eugenicists and believe that they have to populate the earth with their seed, which sounds absolutely disgusting, because they believe that they're so smarter than the rest of us, and that's the way to ensure collective human intelligence and stuff like that. But the underlying and uniting all of them is they want more wage slaves because they want capitalism or potentially techno-feudalism to exist and continue to thrive, with them all in an untouchable position. That is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.